try to see like what could you include in the appendix and keep the case study just like what you took away from it. I've always liked knowing what kind of explorations someone explored and like why they decided to go with the one they decided to go with. Yeah, everything is like primary, and I'm just like having a hard time following along with your storytelling and like how you got to the next step. I feel like everything you include in your case study should be intentional. Like if you didn't do personas, or if you're like don't have time for personas, like don't include them, and don't include things just for the sake of including them.
What are your
My
thoughts?
first thought is very long, and I feel like you could think of any additional info and like create another section called appendix on the bottom and loop them there. But upon first glance, I see like you probably should use more padding in your section because it looks like the illustration is very close to the border and it looks like bad, like visually on the top. And then I like right there, like yeah like that. This does not look clean upon first impression. And for the project overview, I liked how you started with what the project was and clearly describe your contributions. Since this is a redesign, I would recommend putting like before and after right there so we can clearly see, oh, this is what you did. I liked the problem and design challenges and importance of it as well. I feel like it's clear, but I feel like you could sum it up in shorter words. I also felt like I liked how you annotated like what was the problem. I'm curious like if that was the actual landing page of the website. It looks like a marketing banner, but that could be the actual one. But I liked how it was the problems are clearly called out and annotated like that. I like the my process. I like that part because it's not like slapping in a double diamond or slapping in a design thinking diagram without context. It actually like shows the flow of what she did. For the illustrations, I recommend taking them out just because I feel like they don't add any additional information, and it looks like to me taken from a stock photos site. At least this is what I seeing a lot of different portfolios, so I would remove that. I liked how you highlighted that part's good. Like I liked how you clearly explained like user interviews, accessibility check, competitive analysis. For the what we learned section, I like that as well. For the barriers, for all the sticky notes, I would recommend maybe like not including that or putting that in the appendix section and just focus on what you took away from all of that. And then scrolling down, I liked the percentages, how the metrics were clearly displayed right there. The quotes, I would recommend not including those or summarizing them or including them in the appendix section. For define, I would recommend putting personas in the appendix section as well. So think of the appendix section as any like design artifacts that helped you get to your conclusion, but keeping your case study like what you got from all of that, like the data. Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt, Grace, but
cheers.
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 Persona. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a persona, and so cheers.
Yeah, persona.
Thank you, Gina.
I knew it. I was like, I gotta remember for this because
design vacations. I see a lot of gamification. I didn't have time to like read through the whole thing, but it seems interesting that the client decided to use gamification to increase engagement for this specific audience of like households. I would love to like understand why, because it seems I'm very interested because I work in the games industry, but I would love to know like why it was there. I didn't get a chance to read through a lot of this stuff, but in general, I would just try to see like what could you include in the appendix and keep the case study just like what you took away from it. I'm just scrolling down and I liked how you showed like your different iterations. It shows that like divergent and then conversion thinking as well. The sketches are good too. Design system. So I see, I liked the sketches and design system. I feel like I'm like, when I think of the process, I feel like visual design comes towards the end. When I see it here, it's like, oh, so you like kind of like design. I guess like I'm a little bit confused of like how you came to this design decision, like why those colors, why this font. So I would recommend like either including another section describing how you got to it, having more details, or probably not including it, just because I'm a little bit confused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the sketches. Yeah.
And yeah, pushing it towards the end because right now it feels like way like you still haven't even figured out
Yeah, the wireframes. It's like, wait,
wireframes
why?
and prototype. Like
Yeah.
it's weird. Yeah, I want to talk about this in a little
Yeah,
bit too.
yeah.
But keep going, Grace.
Yeah, I liked sketching to prototype. I like this little carousel. It shows like sketch, mid-fi, yeah, and then hi-fi. Maybe I missed it, but I would love more information about how you got between each steps, like what changed between each steps, because it seems, yeah, like the mid-fi I see like different buttons on the hi-fi, so like more of your thinking of like why you decided to maybe put 2 buttons on the hi-fi instead of the mid-fi, and like what changed, and like what was how did your like process or your designs change throughout that process, and why, using like data you've gotten from like your research or your business partners. I see iteration 1. I would love to see more explorations, and I've always liked I like knowing like what kind of explorations someone explored and like why they decided to go with the one they decided to go with. So more of that, more you can show that like double diamond, like that diverge and like converging back. Testing it, which is, I see testing. I feel like, yeah, the feedback, I would summarize this whole section and not include all their quotes. I see iteration 2 now. Okay, so that makes more sense. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to.
we didn't finish it, get all this far down. Yeah, we all were like, oh gosh,
Yeah,
running out of time.
Yeah, gamification, A/B testing. Like, I like this process, but I feel like it's a little bit hard to follow, just because I see everything as like primary. And I'm just like having a hard time following along with like your storytelling, and like how you got to the next step. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. A/B
That's probably my biggest piece of feedback on this, and I'll get to that in a minute, but just to like really hammer that home, is the storytelling here is like non-existent to a certain extent. It felt to me like she would talk a little bit about what she was doing and then like kind of how it led to the next thing, but it was really like, I did all these things. It was very much like, I did this thing, I did this thing, I did this thing, the team did this thing, and it felt very out of order and like a random smattering.
It felt like a boot camp.
It
felt like
really
right off the bat boot camp project. Like you can tell from a mile away, you know? Yeah.
Same here. Same. It does feel like it's like need to fulfill like a checklist and make sure you got everything. And I feel like everything you include in your case study should be intentional. Like if you didn't do personas, or if you're like don't have time for personas, like don't include them, and don't include things just for the sake of including them.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Deliver. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I like the annotations of your landing page though. I think it's very clear to follow, and it clearly shows like your intentionality behind the designs, which is important because as a hiring manager, I want to make sure that my design team makes logical, rational design decisions based on data, and yeah, backed by research and stuff. So like just by skimming it, I see that. Usability test. I feel like, yeah, the usability testing results, I would not include this. I would just include like a takeaway sentence. Yeah, the quotes. Yeah, this is from the CEO. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, I think because this is from the CEO of your client, I think you could keep it there. Reflection, next steps, what I learned. I really like the what I learned section because it shows that you're self-aware, you're striving to improve, and that's on the key skills like me as a hiring manager would look for. And this is just like speaking from my experience interviewing people at EA too. What I like in my experience, like reviewing portfolios at EA.
I so appreciate that, Grace. Yeah, super great feedback. Ludovic, what are your thoughts?
Man, I mean, when I was looking at the case study, I think that so far it's the page where I'm like, wow, like we were good before, but I feel like I'm gonna have to go for a mayor, or if not, needs a role, just because of the fact that there's so much information. I have to do so much work. I feel like the hero section, I don't really even understand what third act is all about. I feel like that paragraph is so complex to understand. I was like, okay, I need to get an understanding first of what this entire thing is all about. After reading it twice, like I still don't fully get it. I kind of generally get it, but I'm like, wait, what is that exactly? And then in the project overview section, how under my contribution it says UI designer, and I was like, okay, so she must.
I know.
Yeah, I was like, wait, so did you do UX or did you do UI? And then when she says UI, but below there are a lot of UX things like sitemap, UX copywriting. personas, usability testing, A/B testing. I'm like, wait, so that's UX, but above you say UI. So I guess because you say UI and it's the primary thing, I guess that's what I should take as the truth, right? But then looking at the UI screen on the right hand side, I'm like, wow, this UI is not good enough, right? Like yeah.
And actually, pause real fast. We all mentioned on the homepage that she wasn't clear about what she was doing, like that she was about UX design,
research and UX.
Maybe this is why, but it doesn't, like, she needs to be backing that up with her case studies. And so it's unclear what she's even after, especially after, like, on that homepage with the promotional stuff. It's like, okay, well, what actually are you aiming? Are you aiming for a UX position? Are you aiming for a UI position? It's really
big time, and that's exactly how I felt. I was like, wait, now I don't even know if she's a UX or UI or research. I was like, where am I? And so anyway, so the third act, if it's truly the case that she's more into UI design, at least for this project, well then, like just seeing the right hand side screen, the actual UI screen, I'm like, this is not there yet in terms of quality of UI. From a hierarchy perspective, from a negative space perspective, from a hierarchy of typography, the color scheme, how the baseline of the text almost touches the bottom of the green buttons. I mean, I'm like, there's so many things screaming at me from a UI perspective, and just like, all right, well, I almost want to stop looking, right? Just because I'm lost. I don't even know what it's all about. And from the right hand side scrolling bar, I'm like, wow, this is really long. And yeah, anyway, and then another thing that I noticed in the problem section above is that on the home screen she did such an amazing job. She brought the how might we question. I was like, yes, this is so clear.
Yes.
But the problem, if you scroll up, Colton, the problem here, it's not even here. I'm like, just give me the how might we is the simplest form of your problem, right? And I think that would help connect quickly. Just put your how might we there, and maybe that's all we need to know, right? And then I can move on very quickly, right? So then, I mean, I didn't have time to look at most of it. One thing I would say about the my process section, I was like hovering over the numbers, like, oh wait, what? They're clickable, and it takes you all the way back up. I'm like, wait, why is this?
No, it takes you. Oh, it just took me down. So I see. She's trying to help you understand where to go, but this actually isn't helpful. Then it's not expected that happens. If this is on like a side nav, that might be interesting, where it's showing you where you are in the process. But like this, I had no idea it was clickable. And on top of that, it's not that.
So anyway, I would just make this not clickable. And again, my process is like, well,
not include it.
It's only the UX process in general anyway that everyone knows, right? So you discover, you all listen. So I don't know if it's necessarily truly useful. And I agree with you, Grace, by the way, on the illustrations. I feel like they have a lot of visual weight and clutter to the page. But yeah, overall then I didn't go that much further, to be honest. And I think a lot of hiring managers will have trouble to stay and focused on what's happening here, right? And the likelihood that they're going to want to scroll and consume more is getting lower by the second. So I think I would just number one piece of feedback, I would say I would have to clean up the storytelling a little bit, and I would say strip out everything that you don't need. And I think there is a lot in there that you don't need to tell a better story. It's not a quantity thing. It's more like, how do I deliver it? What were the necessary parts in the UX process that I need to show? What were the ones that I did but are really not necessary to my story right now? And I feel like there is a lot of that, and extracting, removing is oftentimes adding, is helping, So yeah, that's
less is more.
Less is more, yes.
Less is more. I feel like that's one of the biggest pieces of feedback on this. Less is more. Also, kind. I said clear is kind. And I feel like this is super clear. To both of your points, it's not super clear. And so I think the storytelling needs to be worked on first and foremost. Like, why did you do these things? How did that lead to the next thing? And so on and so forth. But you don't need to provide all of everything. Like, you can, if you want to, you can have a detail section that's open and say, hey, see more about this. And then it expands and you see all of it. But what's the high level overview? If this was put into a kid's book that was broken down into 10 pages, 12 pages of simple sentences, what would that look like? That's kind of one of the things to be thinking about. Is if I can make this super simple. Illustrations 100% with you. Especially when she said that she's a UI designer. The UI design makes me concerned. And now, don't get me wrong, that's a teachable process. But when you look at the colors, that's fine. The green's fine and whatnot. But this padding of the buttons, the choice of the font, this looks like way too much to me, like Comic Sans. that it makes it feel not professional. It makes it feel like a ClickFunnels site, like where they use all their Comic Sans and whatnot, or whatever the hell they're using to make it feel like really approachable. And so it was a lot of stuff like that. It felt like very much like, you know, you randomly hop into this part right here with these like avatars that she created. And then there's the iteration. It's like, it just felt so disjointed that I didn't want to follow along. And which is so disappointing, because kind of to both of your points, you know, the how might we on the homepage was like really inviting. Like, okay, this is awesome. Like, she gets it. Like, I'm going to see this and it's going to be an excellent case study. And like, I feel like even though we gave, you know, a good on both the other pages, like I was expecting at least a good on this. And like, I'm sitting at a needs an overhaul. Like, I don't think I'm at a mat. I think I'm at a needs an overhaul on this. And like, I have a feeling that most hiring managers would be feeling the same way. And so that is, I think, what needs to be focused. Needs an overhaul. Really go through, like, rewrite the story, make sure it's clear what's going on, include the how might we, make sure the visual design matches up with the other pages so it all feels cohesive. Basically.
And you know, the biggest piece of feedback I have that just came to mind as you were talking is this one, which is, we don't know if she's more of a researcher or a UI designer or a UX designer, just like we don't know exactly her past, if it's more in education or in graphic design, right? So I think that would help, at least here, to Eugene, I had to really think about this one super deep, right? From a UI perspective, you're not there yet. You would just need to take a few more months to really get into UI, the depth of UI, of color theory, of type, of negative space. And in half a second, I can tell that you're not there, right? And a lot of hiring managers will just want to close the portfolio just for that. So if you feel like your strength is not in UI, I think that's totally fine, right? But I would say, maybe research is a better deal for me, and maybe that's where my strength lies actually, and that's kind of nice because it connects you with your former education skills, which are so great. Research and education, they go hand in hand so well. And then if that's truly the case, if you're more in the UX research side of things, I'm not worried about the UI design at all, right? And so that would not become a worry whatsoever in just a fraction of a second, because I know you're a UX researcher, right? So I would just think about this alignment, right? I feel like ask yourself, am I more of a UX researcher, a UX designer, or a UI designer? And then based on that initial alignment, then I would work on the case studies and make sure they align exactly to that specific positioning.
Yeah. 100%. So I didn't hear both of your ratings.
Needs an overhaul.
Yeah.
All the reasons y'all mentioned.
Okay, so a meh.
No, I said no. I said like me too.
Me too. I thought you meant like a two.
Aligned today. Okay. So much synergy.
Yeah.
Corporate jargon.
Yeah, all the synergy.
Yeah.
Just vibing. I love it. Well, regardless, Gina, you've done a great job. I think all of us, like, first of all, we all know how much work it takes to do this, and so I don't want this to get you down in terms of any negative feedback. It's more of so that you grow and so that you can improve this and then land your job and, you know, kick ass and take names. I think honestly, the storytelling, if you fix that one piece, just that one piece, that would already help quite a bit. So you cut down on the length, tell a consistent story. It makes it that much easier to follow and understand your process.
And your positioning. Who are you?
So
storytelling, and tell us who you are. UX designer, UX, UI, or research? We want to know so bad. Yeah.